Welcome to What's Your Story. Today we have a guest that I absolutely love. I've known this man for a while, and he's just fascinating. His name is Jeff McGee. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. Good day. Great to be with you. You're a legend, and I'm excited to be in your presence.
Thank you. I didn't know I was a legend.
You are.
That's cool. But I'm really glad you're here. There's so much to talk about you. I mean, if I look at your bio, we could go on and on and on, because you're kind of a superstar in the speaking industry. You talk about leadership mastery, I understand.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have attended some of your programs. You're very, very good at what you do.
I really appreciate that.
And you've written books, and you have a magazine. And tell us about you.
I was raised in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My father's retired military, so I was born at the U.S. Air Force Academy, and we all have an interesting backstory, but mine is just probably like any other Americana young boy and young girl. I was raised in the Springs, part of my life on a farm, part of my life in Colorado Springs, but I tell people I escaped and went to Kansas for college as an athlete and a journalist, and the athlete didn't stay too long with me, but the journalist did.
Yes. And you, how did you go from that into becoming a world-renowned speaker?
Not by design, that's for sure. There are a lot of people that you and I have crossed in our career that really has been their trajectory. You know, whether they were involved in speech, in Future Farmers of America, or in some sort of DECA or FBLA sort of programs in high school or college, it kind of put them in that trajectory.
Yes.
That's not my path, nor yours. There's a great backstory. Someone needs to interview you sometime. There's a great story right there.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks.
But it really came out of a series of situations. I tell people that, when you get to a certain age, which is kind of a scary statement because then it makes you sound old, and we've all heard the old person make that comment, we roll our eyes. But there is a point at which you get to a station in life, and you look in your rearview mirror of life and realize, these different jobs or experiences that I've had, while at the time maybe they didn't seem to make a lot of sense when I went from one to the other, like getting downsized from a Fortune 500 company was one of my experiences. You don't kind of see how that connects to the next job, but eventually you see cumulatively how those past jobs and experiences and knowledge gained gives you phenomenal perspective on your next strategic move forward, whether it's in business, life in general, what have you. You start getting smart about it. My situation came about when I was working for a company by day in sales, which is not what I grew up thinking I would ever do. But again, situations will dictate what you do. And the company paid for me to take the Dale Carnegie sales class. Now, when I signed up for it, though, here was the predicament. I had no money to pay for the class. So I had to sell the gentleman that owned the franchise on letting me take it for 12 weeks because the company would reimburse me if I graduated. So I sold him on that, did that one. And what was interesting, he then introduced me to this whole industry of professional speaking, or subject matter experts that come in as a consultant or coach and speak to a group, whether it's a small executive team, a retreat, a conference, at a convention. And basically, by day I'm in sales management. At night I'm teaching a Dale Carnegie sales class. I'm not getting paid much of anything for teaching, but working with fellow adults really was kind of a light bulb moment that this is fun. I'm learning from them, they're learning from me. So when I got downsized a second time, and so let's put downsizing into context. Again, some of us are of age, which becomes scary. That in the 90s, that's actually how corporate America ran its balance sheet. Whenever they got in trouble, you just fired 10, 20, 30,000 employees, and it made you look good. And so a lot of people that are 50, 60 years of age or older had that experience. That in the 90s, that's actually what a lot of businesses did. It didn't matter if you were good or not. They had to make their balance sheet look good for Wall Street, they said. So I was kind of in the right place at the right time, saying it now. Now, back then, I didn't think it was too good at all. So I had that experience of older people always say, if you could find something you're good at doing, find a way to do the things you love to do, and you could get paid for it, you're really never going to work a day in your life because you're going to love everything you do. And that was really the trajectory-changing moment that I started to realize, wait a minute, there's an industry out there where I could get paid to share what I know. Let me explore that. And that's kind of how I got into it. Definitely not by design in any way, shape, or form.
That's amazing. It's amazing how our lives kind of take on a life of their own, right? I mean,
they do.
We have plans, but what's that saying? What happens when
Yeah, you can have a great plan, but when reality wakes up and shows you, what's going to happen, plans sometimes go right out the window. But it's your ability to stay focused, though.
Yes.
To say, okay, is that still my goal? And if it's my goal, recognizing there's multiple ways to get there is kind of the transformational mindset. It's a transformational organization to know how to flow with these situations instead of letting them knock you off track. And then it becomes, the change. Change is a big word in a world that I actually don't like. Because when people talk about you need to make a change, or I teach change management, what you're really saying is that I'm not thinking over the horizon. I don't have the ability to see potential opportunities, so I'm going to wait until the disruption or the derailment happens, and then I will change, or I'll see how to change with the market space. And again, we think about, at the time we're recording this, here in 21, that we've just went through 18 months of the global pandemic. Whatever your political views are on it doesn't matter. Whatever your health views are on it doesn't matter. It definitely has been a game changer to the planet, professionally and personally. So people that are in a transformational mode were the ones in March and April and May of 2020, when COVID started shutting the world down, that actually leveraged their successes and were very, very successful. Where a lot of people had to go into massive change, reinvent themselves, or change to be able to meet market needs, and it's taken them a year to dig out of that hole. So change is a bad word if you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Transformational is where you should live.
I like that. I hadn't heard that before. I know that change is happening all the time. I mean, it's like everything changes. It's
change is
a
a constant.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. See, that's exactly it. And when you realize that, then you say, okay, how do I evolve through that? What's my knowledge? What's my skills? What are the resources? What's the technology? Who are the great assets of people you need to have around yourself? So that, again, because change is the new reality, and some people have just woken up to that in the past 18 months. It's become, just as we've just said here, the phrase of the day: change is a reality. Well, yeah, we knew that in essence before COVID, but few people were realizing that.
Exactly. You had a statement about reality check, that dealing with all this change is really a reality check. What do you mean by that?
I think it's a reality check to several things. And again, to answer that is not going to be very popular with some viewers. So that'll be my preface, my caution note, that you may not want to let your kids hear the next comments. Gallup organization, one of many research entities, before COVID had done some massive research where they went into organizations and they asked a series of questions to really identify, from a human capital standpoint, what are people's engagement in the workplace. And perhaps people have heard of this survey before, but what's alarming, to answer your question, is the context of it now coming out of COVID has really put the spotlight on why this reality check, I think, is very alarming to people. In essence, what the research found was that from thousands of businesses surveyed, which makes this survey massive in nature because it means tens, if not hundreds of thousands of responders, 56% of the American workplace said they're complacent or disengaged. Going through the motions is maybe another way of saying it. Okay, we could say, okay, that's the problem with the individual, that's the problem of the organization, it's a problem of culture, problem of leadership. Okay, say that for another day. 15% of the responders said they're actively disengaged. So this is that population that these are your troublemakers. These are your terrorist organizations. These are the cancerous people. These are the passive aggressive. These are the people, quite frankly, that get up every morning and look for something to bitch at. And it's not hard to find them. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. So if you do the math, 56% are disengaged, 15% are actively disengaged. That means 29% are engaged. So what businesses before COVID might not have been acknowledging, realizing, or had the guts to even say, COVID has made it very clear. It's not that there's a labor shortage on the planet in North America and the United States because a number of people have lost their lives to COVID, and you and I have all met and known some people that have lost their lives. So it's not a simple, easy topic, and I'm not trying to dismiss it.
No.
And also, it's not because there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people that have been taken out of the workplace. And forget the politics, because it is purely stupid for anyone who actually works for a living like you and I to say what I'm about to say is correct. And that is, our government actually pays people 18 months after the fact now to stay out of the workplace. In the first couple of months of COVID, that might have made sense.
Right.
18 months later, there is no reason for the government to be giving anyone any sort of dispensation payments to not be working, period. I mean, that should be criminal behavior right there. But it seems to be fashionable. So that's why I said it's a tough love reality statement. There's reality elements. So if I'm looking at my business today, I need to be able to interview smarter to make sure I'm not hiring a 56%er, a 15%er, and I'm only interviewing to find the 29%ers. If I'm seeking counsel from someone, my lawyer, my CPA, my insurance agent, my advisor, my banker, whoever, you need to figure out, are these 29%ers? Because if they are, that's who you want in your court. Because transformers, that word we talked about a minute ago, are 29%ers. These are people that they've got crap coming at them just like anybody else. But 29%ers don't use that as an excuse for mediocrity or lower the bar.
Right.
I mean, you and I are part of associations, and we have clients that are out there every day that right now their reality check is that they've been very successful for the past 18 months, either because they were following these sort of models of building an environment for 29%ers and a culture that's conducive for that, or they're in trouble because they weren't doing it. 100% of my clients for the past 18 months during COVID have all had the most profitable years in their history. And these are $500 million to $6-7 billion size businesses because they're willing to look at the reality check. Look at any business that's in trouble today. Look at any association that's in trouble today. It's because they're still trying to make excuses for complacency.
Do you think they're still trying to live the way they did 2 years ago?
They are, and they're trying to live the way they were 2 years ago because they were fools. It's kind of like that great TV commercial with that older couple talking about, a product they just received, and they go, "Oh my God, we were living in a fool's paradise." I think a lot of people pre-COVID, their businesses had momentum that was carrying them through bad decision making and bad management. It was covering for them. Before COVID, we had revenue streams that businesses had coming through the doors that allowed them to keep the doors open, even though maybe they weren't profitable, but they had the revenue stream to just keep the doors open. Well, what COVID has done is it's put the spotlight on, you can't have these excuses. Unless you have someone with huge, deep pockets that's willing to keep paying you to be dumb, you're not going to stay in business today. I mean, we're here in Las Vegas as we're recording this. Think about it. 85% of the restaurants on the Las Vegas Strip that were closed in March of 2020 are today, 18 months later, either still closed or partially open. There are celebrity chef restaurants on the Strip that were open before COVID 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. That today, some of them are not open for lunch at all. Some are only open a couple days a week. Dinner, some are only open a couple nights a week. I mean, and it's all over the place. I went to a bank the other day, and the bank's hours are now basically from 11 to 4. I mean, that's not responding to the customer base. What they're saying is we're only open from 11 to 4 because that's all our employees want to work, or we can't find anyone who's willing to work. So the whole market's in a state of flux, and I think it's going to start to shake out whenever we decide that line in the sand says COVID's over, we're moving forward. It's going to take about 24 months for all this to shake out. And I think a whole lot of people that want to work virtual or remote now because that's what they were forced to do for the last 18 months, a lot of people that may want to change in their life, all that's going to be great, but in the next 18 months, the reality is people are going to have to produce or they're going to be unemployed. And that unemployment money is going to start to come to an end because hardworking people are only going to be complacent themselves in that situation so long before they stand up.
Oh, exactly. There's a lot of talk today about alignment. What do you think about that?
Again, let's go back to transformational. So for transformational, then part of transformational is it's an evolving mindset. You're always ready and recognizing where that next derailment or challenge is going to come from. Or if something unexpected happens, it doesn't freak you out because you have systems in place, or you have structure, you have people, you have process, procedures that allows you to work through those. In answering this question of alignment, it's nothing new. What is, it's become fashionable in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. To me, alignment means, are we congruent? Are we in harmony? Do we connect? Any of those words really brings it back to several elements. One, if I look at it from a business context, there's only 3 variables that matter around the word alignment. So if you're hiring me to work for your business into a position, the first thing you have to look at is the word positional. So I also challenge how we look at these things. I mean, unless you're in a mission-based business where you don't need to really worry about needing to be profitable because someone's always going to give you a check to be nice and help somebody out, the rest of us who are in business have to generate an ROI. So it starts with position. Is the position you have on your org chart in alignment with what the mission, values, or vision of the organization is all about? A lot of businesses before COVID had tons of people working for them that really didn't bring value to the bottom line. The position didn't bring value. I'm not attacking the person. So first you have to look at, does this position make sense in the new world economy of where we are today? Then if that does, then the second is organizationally, does the organization really bring value to the marketplace? Is there a purpose for it? And then third will enter the individual human being, you and I. If you're the boss, you're the owner, me the employee. What's our purpose? So alignment actually goes to the word purpose. Now let me connect what I've just said to make sense out of it. What I'm really saying is this. If you understand what your real purpose is in life, purpose is a psychological driver to what your values are. Purpose is what's going to give you meaning. Purpose is what's going to cause you to get out of bed in the morning or not. Purpose is going to be what gives you the passion to work on a bad day. So if you know what your purpose is, and I can align that to the position in this organization, to the organization that serves in the marketplace, to the other people on the team, if we're all aligned, it's amazing how you can make miracles happen. But when you're not aligned, then you have the survival of the fittest mindset that if it's a good day, we're all together, but if it's a tough day, boom, everyone's in it for themselves, then we're in trouble. And again, COVID has been a great example. You've seen a ton of businesses come together in time of crisis and trauma. They're aligned. Well, wait a minute, what brought us together? We need to write that on the wall. So then when COVID is gone, as they say, and now it's the new day, people start to don't feel like they have a reason to be together, go back to those words. If those words were important yesterday, they should be important today, and that's how you keep it together. What is your purpose? Purpose gives you your drive. My purpose and your purpose align, we're going to work together. Alignment's critically important for you to produce, for you to innovate, for you to create a culture where people want to be there, so you attract other people like you. And the other beauty of the word culture and purpose and alignment is it becomes kind of like your protective armor, so the people that don't want to buy into that, don't want to be a part of it, that's great, boom, you repel them, let them go somewhere else. Businesses get in trouble when they try to be all things to all people.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. But you know, that's only been in the last, few decades, I think that people have become more specialized and more experts in their field rather than trying to be all things to all people.
Well, and again, it's transformational. It's how we've evolved. So, for example, for our older viewers today, which is a lot of our audience, you'll love this story. If you're younger and don't get these names, write these down and Google this later. This will be a homework assignment.
Okay.
But we used to be a society of all things for all people, and that's what Montgomery Ward's was.
Yes.
You went there for everything. Sears, that's what Sears was. You went there for everything. There was a time that you had that Sears catalog. You could even order a home through Sears. Then it became J.C. Penney's. Well, Sears is gone. Montgomery Ward's is gone. J.C. Penney's is about to be gone because we've all evolved where no one really wants to go to a one place for everything in life, because it's hard to really be the perfectionist on everything. It's hard to be the subject matter expert on everything. So all of these other options now are available. Now enter social media, now enter technology, now enter the internet of where we are today. It's a lot easier to find the special product in all these other places and even have it delivered, thank you, Mr. Amazon, delivered to your front door within an hour or two. So you don't have to worry about driving across town or across the state to get to a Sears, to Montgomery Ward's that no longer exist, or to a J.C. Penney's. So that's the other reason why I think trying to be all things to all people is not really going to be the future, because we've all evolved beyond that.
Wow, it's amazing. It's funny you mentioned Montgomery Ward. You know, I used to be Wendy Ward. Wendy Ward from the Montgomery Ward store.
Told you the backstories. There's phenomenal stories within this woman.
You are a commanding and a prolific author, and you also publish a magazine. And I've read your magazine many months, and it's really good. You
do one as well. It's a beautiful publication.
Well, thank you. But your articles are just amazing. So tell my audience a little bit about your magazine and how they can get it, because I think people, after hearing you speak, people are going to want to have more of you. They're going to want to read things and learn more.
So the magazine is called Professional Performance Magazine, and that's the URL. So www.professionalperformancemagazine.com. Comes out each quarter. This is our 30th year we're celebrating.
30 years.
30 years. Isn't that amazing? 30
That's
years.
amazing.
It's crazy. So it's a publication that most people have never heard of, and then once you hear of it, it's kind of like you start seeing it everywhere sort of magazine.
Yeah.
It's not on the traditional newsstand as a periodical. It's a subscription-based. We have nearly 500,000 subscribers. It's quite substantial. Marriott, Mercedes, High Point University are some of our anchor advertisers, been with us for many years. So within it, how it came about was the first statement. Let me back up for a minute in terms of writing. So in my space as a business owner and business manager over the years, and now working with business owners and leaders, one of the ways I think I owe them how I stay fresh and cutting edge is always pushing my own brain development, so I'm not resting on my archive of my life. So I'm always writing. So I've written 31 books translated into 21 languages, 4 graduate management textbooks by Pearson Education, the largest textbook publisher in the world. My trade books have been published by McGraw-Hill and John Wiley, 2 of the largest trade book publishers in the world. And within that, writing around business and leadership is where I primarily live. I've written only one personal success book in that entire time of 30 years. Years ago, what I was wondering and thinking to myself one day as a newbie into the speaking world, but in essence in training, is every trade association has a publication. If you're a CPA, you're an engineer, you're an attorney, you're a civil engineer, you're in insurance. Everyone has a trade association publication. They're typically journal-esque.
Yes.
They come out monthly or quarterly, but they're typically very trend-based. And then there's tons of magazines out there on the newsstands, or you can buy online, that now have evolved to blogs and podcasts and etc. But most magazines are also very current event or very feature-esque. but they don't really get to the substance of the meat of success, and that's where my hunger was. So I sat down 30 years ago and I said, who are some of the mentors or some of the celebrities in my industry that I didn't know or did know? So Brian Tracy was one of the people I did know, and I reached out to him, and Zig Ziglar, who I didn't know, who I then got to know over the years. Matter of fact, he wrote the 4 to 2 my books, and before he passed away, he actually sent me or his team did. He had his team send me a zip file of 70 articles that he gifted to me that had never been published. Oh. So the last article in every issue of our magazine is kind of like an in memoriam to him, but it's an article from Zig, and it's profound. Even though he's passed away many years ago, his articles, I have never had to edit them to make them still relevant. The man was a genius. So what I did is I reached out to all these people 30 years ago, and I said, I have a question. I want to start a magazine. I want the articles to be evergreen in nature, from your lens, something about success. Would you be willing to share it with me? And I can't pay you for it, and I want to have mutual rights that I can reuse it any way I want. Stunningly, everyone said yes. So Zig Ziglar sent articles, Brian Tracy, others. And so how the magazine's evolved is that every issue I have roughly 25 what I believe to be phenomenal contributors. I always have a federal politician, regardless of political side, write me an article on success, but not about your politics. I always have a religious elder. American Indian heritage is fascination, so I always have a tribal Indian chief or principal CEO, some of them call them. I always have a C-suite executive from the Fortune 100 suite. New York Times bestselling authors, celebrities, athletes, world leaders. The last 3 presidents of the United States I've interviewed for my magazine on success, not their politics.
Yes.
3 former first ladies, and on and on. So that's the magazine. Those are the phenomenal people. In each issue, they share in 500 to 1,000 words something on success. Colin Powell's written for me. He recently passed away, and it was just phenomenal to go back and reread his words.
Oh, I'm sure.
Still relevant today. So that's the magazine. So thanks for asking. But it's a fun tool, and you can find out more at professionalperformancemagazine.com, and you can sign up for it, and there's other resources on that website.
Yes, it's a wonderful magazine, and the articles are interesting. That you said, you told them you couldn't pay them, and that they could write anyway. I think the kind of people that you solicited to be in your magazine are the kind of people that want to make the world better, and therefore they weren't concerned about getting paid. They were concerned about making the world better.
True contributor. That's interesting, Judy. What I've recognized, I don't know about yourself, but when I've had a chance to meet what I would consider to be phenomenal celebrities. So whatever that category means to you. It could be a celebrity, it could be, the local farmer where you live across Americana that's phenomenally successful. The celebrity could be the banker, it could be your religious elder, it could be the airline pilot, whoever. But when I meet phenomenal celebrities, whether it's on an airplane, in an audience, on stage, backstage, because they're getting ready to go out and speak. And that's why I met former Secretary Colin Powell. He was speaking in Dallas, and I followed him. And so that was kind of my opening line. It's like, well, you never want to follow that gentleman. And everyone got laughing, and I can now engage them.
Yeah.
But what I found about phenomenal celebrities is this. If they truly are accomplished, and they are at home with themselves, it never is about them. It's about giving to help the next person.
Exactly.
It's the ones that are not quite there, or the ones that are a little bit full of themselves, are usually the most high maintenance, pain in the butt human beings I've ever met. just nutty.
That's so true. It really is. You talked about the year 2020 being a reboot.
Absolutely. So I think 2020. Everyone likes to still refer to, COVID, the global pandemic, whatever name you want to put on it, because then that fixates your mind in a kind of a trajectory. I want people to kind of back out of it and look at it differently. In business before COVID, before 2020, in business every decade, sometimes a little bit shorter, but typically every 10 years, so just think about whatever your age is and just go backwards. And even in life, this model applies. But in business, it's about every 10 years something major, significant happens that changes the trajectory of how businesses think and operate. So if we take COVID out of the play, then if you think about it, 2008, 9, and 10 was in the United States a major, recession.
Yes.
If you go back another 10 years, it's 9/11. If you go back another 10 years, basically it'd be the whole dot-com bubble. If you go back so if you just kind of go back, every decade there's typically something that really recalibrates how we do business, what new businesses are, how businesses are held accountable, which businesses go out of play, which ones are are validated or invalidated. So to me, what COVID really is, and people are missing this. For a lot of people, they might have been maybe insulated from the real estate-led recession of 2008, 9, and 10. In 9/11, our media even did a huge disservice to the world because they were telling parents to shield your kids from watching the horrificness of 9/11 on TV. So my point being is that a lot of people woke up in COVID realizing this might be the first time they've actually encountered a major change in their life, the word that I hate, and they didn't know how to respond to it because they weren't transformational thinking or operating sort of people. So to me, it really is a great reboot. Talk to business people. Let's say you and I are in a business conference and you, our viewer, are watching. So let's say we're in a large convention space. It's January 2020. And I'm asking a bunch of business leaders, do you all have a business plan for 2020? Almost everyone's hand would go up. But if I asked that same crowd in June of 2020, how many of you had to readjust your business plan for the year? A ton of hands would go back up.
Yes.
Back to January of 2020. If I would have asked a lot of business leaders about looking at your employees and seeing how many of your employees you could outsource, how many of those jobs people could you allow them to work remote or virtually and still be a part of your company, a ton of people would say no, not right now. Yeah, maybe in a couple of years. Well, by June of 2020, a whole lot of businesses were all working remotely, and they were finding that they were actually just as productive as they were before and or more productive and profitable. So my point about reboot is 2020 should be looked at as a great reboot to your purpose, reboot to your values, reboot to how you look at where you want to be in life, what's important to you, what your goals are. Businesses, it's a great reboot to relook at themselves. 85% of the restaurants in Las Vegas are still trying to figure out how to do restaurant business. Well, let's go back to before COVID. Everyone knows about a drive-up restaurant, so let's go during COVID. I never saw a drive-up restaurant out of business. Not one fast food restaurant out of business. So the reboot means if I'm in a restaurant space, COVID caused me to learn how to use an Uber Eat concept, adjust my website to be order-friendly, have an app, let people drive up and pick up food orders. Well, see, they should have been doing that before COVID. So COVID's a great reboot that we all really need to re-examine everything in life as to how we look at things, how our government serves our people. Nothing negative, but it's also a great reboot of how we need to readjust that, how we're going to be good students and stewards in the global world that we live in, and where we need to reach out and help people, but at the same time where we need to say, no, I'm not going to reach out and help you. I'm going to hold you accountable. You need to do this before I'm going to do this. Because again, if you're old enough to think back over history, there's a whole lot of we've been helping people that have not helped themselves.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of helping people that they've not stood for themselves. Great reboot. Maybe here's a biblical thought. Before you worry about going 5 countries away to help someone else, how about walk outside your front door and take care of your own zip code first?
Yes.
When that's taken care of, then worry about your, the next zip code, and then worry about your state, and then the next state. Help thy neighbor. It's amazing how many people jump over right here to help their neighbor way over there.
Yes.
So those are just examples to ramble through what I mean by the great reboot.
Exactly. That's fascinating. You make me want to go out and conquer the world.
Let's do it.
Tell us about your book.
So newest book is Your Trajectory Code. Voila, thank you very much. It actually is not the newest book, but again, COVID, the great reboot, has made this absolutely one more time. 15 quick chapters on how to look at you, look at yourself, look at those people around you to truly calibrate to greater levels of success. I believe this book needs to be relaunched again because I think COVID has validated everything I've said in there. The people that read this book, have been applying this book before COVID, are all the people that are thriving in their life today. Every one of my clients, this is required reading for them in my management track, which might be one of, so I'll take partial credit. My clients have to take the other 99% credit because they did it. But I am going to lay out there, I think one of the reasons that 100% of my clients have been successful in the past 18 months is because they have been applying these sort of models. There's no secret to success. There's some work, and a lot of people don't want to do the work.
No, they sure don't. Tell us a little bit about brand integrity. I know you're a specialist in brands, and I'm just really interested in.
This is a power topic.
Yeah, because a lot of people talk about their brand, but I'm not sure they fully understand brand integrity.
Brand. So your a lot of ways to address it. So let me reframe. There could be a lot of ways to speak to your question. So my response, your identity, your reputation, that's your brand. If someone says, well, what's your brand? Well, ask someone to identify. So tell me more about Judy. Whatever I say about Judy, that's your brand, whether you like it or not. And if you hear people talk about you and it's somewhat congruent with, okay, that's who I am, there's your brand. But if you hear people talk about you and go, wow, that's not it, then we have 2 options. One, they have an issue and they're misreading, so we can hold them accountable. Or maybe they're right and you're not, in essence, living up to your brand. So brand is reputation, brand is identity, brand is your purpose, brand is what you project out there. Part of my brand, I try to never be rude and disrespectful, but I'll get close if I need to with someone because, again, as my kind of mantra is I grow and develop people. And I learned that from one of my clients. He made that comment one day. He says, Jeff, what you really are about, you grow people. That's what you do. Wow, I love that one. So in growing people, as a parent, as a business leader, as an employee, as a coworker, back to brand, we've got to recognize whatever you promote to the world and tell the world this is your brand, then you have to live up to it. So I fly a lot on airlines, as you do and others maybe do. And again, during COVID, I still flew a whole lot. And it was kind of scary for several months getting on a plane and there's no one else there but you. It reminded me of 9/11. See, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
So brand. So if an airline says to me, we want to align with you, we want to partner with you, we want all your money basically. So if you'll fly exclusively with us, then for all of that money, we promise you these levels of what we're going to give back to you. So at a silver, here's what you get as a benefit or our commitment to you, our brand. At gold, you get this. At platinum, you get this. And at American Airlines, I'm their highest level, which is an executive platinum. So they had to make up a fourth level. So the first three, you can qualify and get those for life if you fly enough. But the fourth one, you have to requalify every year. At Delta, I'm the same thing. I'm their highest level, which is called a diamond. So I have to requalify every year for that one. So at Diamond, their brand promise is if you fly 120 flights or spend this much money with us every year, you get all of these benefits.
Right.
You know, you'll get two, and then they give me this list. Well, if I go to the airport and the gate agent has decided for themselves to violate their organization corporate policies and values and brand and do the opposite, they're breaking their brand promise. If I get on a plane, and again, for customers, if I owned an airline, then what I really need to realize is that my flight attendants are my first line of success and defense and failure, because our customers are going to spend more time with our flight attendants than any other employee in Delta.
Right.
So you should be investing major money with those flight attendants. You should be paying them phenomenal paycheck, which means you should also demand and expect phenomenal performance. And if they're not going to live up to that brand promise, then let them go work for someone else and find someone who will work there. So if I get on a plane and everything I've been promised I don't get, they're breaking their brand promise. If I share that politely with someone in the organization, then that person should own, if they're living up to their brand, finding a solution and getting back to me. And if no one does any of that, they've broken their brand promise. If you buy a product at Best Buy and you go home and the product does everything you bought it for, then that's great. If you buy it, it doesn't work, you take it back to Best Buy and they replace it, they're living up to the brand promise that you have in your head that you think they're going to take care of you, whether that's true or false. Or did you buy, in essence, a warranty on it? So again, the brand promise we experience as customers in life in lots of examples. If you hire me and say, Jeff, if you do this, I'll give you that, and you give me that, you're living up to your brand promise.
Yes.
If I do this and you don't give me that, now you're not living up to the brand promise. People need to understand, if you say you're going to do something, you need to be a man, woman, person of your word. And if you can't deliver, then maybe just don't say it. But we also live in a world today, and I'm sorry, this is very politically incorrect, where we need some people that need to quit being wussies. And the other problem out there is that you can't have an accountability conversation because everyone gets offended. And it's easy to be offended because you can drop the diversity card, or you can drop the gender card, or you can drop the generational card, and then it freaks everyone out, pardon my language. But again, there's a difference between being rude and disrespectful and being honest and being tough. And we can't even have accountability, harsh conversations today to therefore honor our brand. And what we do is that we start placating, and next thing you know, there is no brand because, again, you have eliminated, you have obliterated it.
Thank you for sharing that, because we have such opinions about this, and it's so exciting when you have a company that actually does live up to everything they said.
Absolutely.
Without you having to throw a fit or keep on them.
It is, and that's what's alarming, is that, again, doing what's right should not have to be taught. If you're over 21, you should have enough common sense to be on the planet. If not, step off the planet. You should do what's right. Again, don't be stupid. But again, if I've had a bad experience and it truly was, again, don't need to toss anyone under the bus, but you're the side of the equation where the oops happened, then just fix it.
Exactly.
I recently bought a new car. Some of the threads started coming out of the seat. Well, I looked at it to make sure, okay, did I scrape it getting it out of the car? And then when I looked at it, it's like, okay, no, I did nothing wrong. Stuff happens. So I'm not going to get mad at anybody. So if I take it back to the dealership and they shoot pictures of it because they've deduced the same thing, it looks like it's just an anomaly and it's manufacturing, and they say, we're going to take care of this, they're living up to their brand.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if behind the scenes it means they're going to have to eat the cost or not, but they know that's the right thing to do. This car's like 60 days old. I'm sorry. The person just spent $1 bazillion on a car. You shouldn't have threads coming out of the seat.
Exactly.
So then they get a hold of the manufacturer. Manufacturer says, we don't have that piece of the seat in America, but we will manufacture. We're going to send it to you so you don't have to absorb the cost. That's living up to the brand. Just do what's right. But now what we also realize is that a lot of people have learned how to take advantage of people. And we learn that as a child, folks. This is not just something that's learned in politics or
But that comes
et cetera.
down to doing what's right on the other side of the coin.
Every time. You need to know when to, again, I took some government aid right after COVID. If that's you, Jeff McGee didn't. If that's you, but now you're able to work and there's a zillion help wanted signs out there, you need to quit taking aid. You know, when I moved to Nevada and sold my business in Montana and came back to being a solo practitioner, this whole conversation today took on a new light, because living here, what I quickly realized is, one, I'm going to do what's right, which is I'm going to have health insurance. Now, I could go around and not have health insurance and go to the emergency room when I need something, and I could fight it and end up getting all kinds of free medical care, because our system actually will take care of people. So I pay for my own insurance. But what's interesting, so I won't mention Affordable Care Act by name, but I was paying $126 a month for my insurance before that guy, decade and a half ago. I'm paying almost $700 a month for my insurance. So it's interesting that, again, I'm doing what's right, but then when I go to use it, is it going to be honored or not? And then I find out things such as back to brand, back to what's right, taking both sides of the stage. Thank God we had a governor here in Nevada recently, not our current one, but the previous one, that when all insurance companies pulled out of the state, he was the one that stood up and said, no, you've got to do what's right. You were in Nevada providing insurance when the Affordable Care Act had a bucket of money on the side that wasn't publicized to underwrite you big insurance companies. But now that bucket of money's gone, now you're all running. No, someone has to stay. And so he was able to get United Healthcare. Thank you for someone having the guts to stand up and do what's right, to create a package for small business people like myself or independent people to get insurance. And that's another example of doing what's right. So I'm doing my piece of what's right by being self-insured. Insurance companies have to do what's right by not gouging me, which they're doing. And so, again, we all have to do what's right. And there's a lot of times there's only one side of that equation that's working it. Absolutely correct.
I love that. I love that. I'm a firm believer about doing what's right, and I'm so glad to hear you say it, because I think a lot of people in the world today have forgotten that. And it's just wonderful to listen to you. I could listen to you forever.
Thank you.
You're really...
I appreciate you.
Well, you're not only a great speaker, you're very knowledgeable and you're well educated, and you keep yourself very up to date on information. And I appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed that through knowing you these past 10 years, and it's been great.
It's been a fast ride, absolutely.
Thank you for being here today and
Thank
for
you.
sharing all your wonderful insights with my
Thank you all.
audience. Would you please tell them how they can reach you if they would like to get a hold of you?
I appreciate it. So there's two ways. One, in terms of my talent development work that I do, which is my primary business model for the past 30 years, it's my name. So it's jeffreymcgee.com. So JEFFREY. And McGee is MAGEE, so jeffreymcgee.com, and that'll bring you up to speed on what I do on that side. The magazine is professionalperformancemagazine.com, and that'll get you up to speed on that side. And we can always get linked together on LinkedIn.
Wonderful.
We're always there as well.
Wonderful, Jeff. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being
Thank
here.
you very much.
And thank you for being here with us today. I'm sure that you enjoyed this information as much as I did. And we hope you'll stay tuned for just a minute. We have a surprise for you, a little bit of knowledge about your story and how you can tell your story. And so stay tuned. We have an offer. Do you want to write a book, but you're not sure where to start? Well, what better time than now? You can learn how to plan, write, and launch your book in just 4 weeks. Writing and publishing a book can give you huge exposure, and when done right, will help you establish expertise and authority in your market. When it comes to creating and launching your book, it may be tempting to just dive into the world of writing and publishing, but this can leave you feeling scattered, uncertain of your message, and overwhelmed by your to-do list. This is why so many people give up and books go unpublished and stories go untold. Planning is the answer, and that's exactly what this e-course will help you do every step of the way. When you have a plan in place for how you'll write, publish, and market your book, the process is much more enjoyable and achievable. Go to my website now, judymorio.com, that's JUDIMOREO.com, and learn how.